What happens when progressive ideals, the big ideas we debate in classrooms, just violently collide with the harsh, unforgiving reality of traditional societal pressure?
Right, when the intellectual debates are suddenly tested by the very real threat of being entirely disowned by your family.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And ultimately, who is the real coward when love is actually on the line? Welcome to the deep dive.
And if you are tuning in on the Simplified Summary YouTube channel today, we are so glad you are here.
Yes, we humbly ask you to do us a huge favor right now. Please hit that subscribe button, like this video to support the content, and share your valuable comments below as you listen.
We truly appreciate that support. It really helps.
It does. Today, we are embarking on a really profoundly emotional mission. We're pulling apart a classic short story titled Kayar.
Which translates to the coward.
Right, The Coward. It was written by the legendary Hindi author Munshi Premchand from his celebrated Mansarovar collection.
And our objective here is to dissect this narrative, to really understand the clash between old traditions and modern talk.
We want to look at the tragic fate of two college students to figure out what true courage actually looks like when all the safety nets are removed.
Before we jump into the plot, though, we really need to understand the world this story inhabits.
Yeah, for those listening who might not be familiar with Munshi Premchand, what kind of societal landscape are we walking into here?
So we are stepping into pre-independence India. Premchand is often considered the Shakespeare of Hindi literature. His superpower was exposing the deep hypocrisies of his society through these very intimate domestic stories.
Right, because the social order back then was largely dictated by a rigid caste system.
Exactly. And this wasn't just, a matter of social cliques. Your caste determined your occupation, your social standing, who you could eat with.
And most importantly, who you could marry.
Yes. To step outside of those boundaries wasn't just frowned upon. It was considered a cataclysmic destruction of your family's honor.
Which sets the stakes perfectly for our opening scene. The story drops us into Victoria Park at sunset.
The golden hour.
Yeah, the light is spilling across the grass. It sounds incredibly peaceful, but the conversation happening between our two main characters is incredibly tense.
We have Keshav and Prema, they're college classmates, and they are very much in love.
A fact that is apparently common knowledge across their entire campus.
Mm-hmm.
But ideologically, they're operating on completely different planets.
The ideological divide between them is the engine that drives this entire narrative. Let's look at Keshav first.
Okay.
He is a Brahmin, which places him at the very top of the traditional Hindu social hierarchy. But outwardly, Keshav projects the image of a thoroughly modern, progressive young man.
He's a vocal opponent of caste barriers, right?
Right? He speaks passionately against outdated societal rules, and he frames himself as this pioneer of the new intellectual waves sweeping through the universities.
I feel like we all know someone exactly like Keshav.
Oh, absolutely.
He's the guy in college who loves playing devil's advocate, who posts endless political rants online, and who always has the perfect theoretical solution to society's problems.
Yeah.
He talks a massive game.
But then we have Prema. She is a Vaishya.
Which means she belongs to the merchant or business class.
Exactly. And while still respectable in the strict orthodox hierarchy of the time, the Vaishya caste is fundamentally distinct from and considered lower in the spiritual and social pecking order than the Brahmins.
And unlike Keshav, Prema doesn't claim to be a revolutionary. She's deeply traditional.
She has immense reverence for her family's customs, their boundaries, their expectations.
The text makes it clear she isn't a rebel by nature. So when we see them in the park, Keshav is aggressively pushing her to elope, to just defy her parents right then and there.
He acts like her fear of hurting her family is just an annoyance getting in the way of his progressive victory.
He dismisses her anxiety completely.
He does, and Premchand uses this conversation to establish a very specific psychological dynamic. To Keshav, marrying across caste lines is a matter of principle, a way to prove his modern credentials.
But for Prema, it's a matter of tearing her entire world apart.
Right. She knows that if she reveals her feelings for a Brahmin boy, her traditional parents won't just be disappointed. They might pull her out of school entirely.
Or force her into an arranged marriage immediately to contain the scandal.
Exactly. So if you were just a bystander watching this argument in the park, the optics are pretty clear.
Keshav looks like the brave visionary urging her to stand up to an oppressive system.
And Prema appears fearful, timid, and entirely bound by traditional conditioning. You would naturally assume Keshav is the brave one and Prema is the coward.
But that illusion is precisely what Premchand wants you to buy into. He's setting up this brilliant exploration of human behavior.
Because if we connect this to the broader human experience, intellectual bravery is vastly different from lived bravery.
It's incredibly easy to advocate for burning down the system when the consequences of that fire remain entirely abstract.
Keshav hasn't actually risked anything yet. He's just talking.
But the talking phase ends very abruptly for Prema. Let's look at what happens when she actually takes this internal conflict home.
Her father has just returned from visiting her college.
And the principal gave Prema a glowing report, praising her intelligence and character. So the father decides this is the perfect moment to reward her with what he considers the ultimate prize.
A marriage proposal.
And not just any proposal. He brings out a photograph of a young man who has just topped the ICS exams, the Indian Civil Service.
To understand the weight of this, you have to realize that during the British Raj, the ICS was the administrative backbone of the entire empire.
An ICS officer held unparalleled power, immense wealth, and the highest possible social prestige.
Even today, a civil service posting holds massive cultural weight in India, but back then it was the absolute pinnacle of success. Her father expects her to be overjoyed.
But Prema, the girl who was literally trembling in the park at the mere thought of upsetting her parents, doesn't react the way he expects.
She's cornered by this incredible offer, yet she pushes back.
She defiantly tells her father that she values sacrifice in a person over wealth or a prestigious government job.
It is a stunning display of fortitude. She is rejecting the societal equivalent of a lottery ticket because it doesn't align with the internal values she has quietly built.
Her father is bewildered. He actually mocks her, challenging her to produce this supposed ideal man who embodies sacrifice.
And her response to that mockery is fascinating. She goes to her room to get a photograph of Keshav to show her father.
But the source material notes that she deliberately chooses his absolute worst photo.
Yes.
She skips the flattering ones and brings out a terrible picture. Why would she intentionally present him in the worst possible light when she's trying to win her father's approval?
It's a brilliant, subtle psychological maneuver. By presenting a poor photograph, she strips away any superficial charm or manufactured polish.
She's essentially laying her cards on the table.
Right, telling her father, this is the unadorned human being I love. I am not choosing him for his status, his wealth, or his looks. She's forcing her father to look at the man himself.
And interestingly, it somewhat works. Despite the bad photo, her father notices Keshav's physical presence. He sees a young man who looks tall, disciplined, and thoughtful.
He actually gives Keshav a moment of begrudging respect.
But that respect evaporates the very second he asks about Keshav's background. Prema confesses that Keshav is a Brahmin.
And the parents' reaction is explosive.
Explosive is putting it mildly.
The reaction is born out of sheer terror for their social survival. The mother is absolutely horrified. She threatens to consider Prema dead to her if she pursues this relationship.
We have to understand this isn't just a mother being dramatic. Social exile was a very real mechanism of traditional coercion.
If Prema marries outside her caste, the entire extended family faces social boycott. They wouldn't be invited to weddings, their other children might become unmarriageable, and their business could suffer.
The mother is wielding the ultimate weapon, total erasure from the family unit.
It's a devastating threat. But Prema holds her ground.
She absorbs that massive blow and doesn't retreat. And because she refuses to fold, her parents realize they are in a highly volatile standoff.
They're genuinely afraid that if they lock her in her room or push her too far, Prema might harm herself.
So the father makes a very reluctant strategic concession. He agrees to go and test Keshav's resolve.
Notice how the dynamic has completely flipped. Prema, the supposedly timid traditionalist, has just risked her entire existence, her family, her security, her social standing for this relationship.
She actually fought the terrifying, grueling battle that Keshav ordered her to fight in the park.
Now, the burden of action shifts entirely to Keshav.
Which brings us to the most critical turning point in the story. Prema's father travels to Keshav's house to meet his father.
Let's dig into who Keshav's father is, because he represents the ultimate immovable object in this narrative.
Keshav's father is a strict, conservative government pensioner.
He's a man who finds his sole sense of purpose in rigid religious superficialities. The text specifically notes that he fiercely guards against the tide of the new era.
He is the living embodiment of the patriarchal caste-bound establishment that Keshav spends all his time loudly criticizing in the college cafeteria.
So Prema's father arrives, likely feeling deeply uncomfortable, and tentatively suggests this intercaste marriage proposal.
How does Keshav's father react to Avaisha proposing a match for his Brahmin son?
He is profoundly insulted. He doesn't just decline the offer, he views the very suggestion as an offensive inversion of the natural order.
He assumes Prema's father must be high on bang to even dare suggest something so outrageous.
Right, bang being an intoxicating cannabis drink. To accuse a respectable merchant of being intoxicated and out of his mind is a massive insult to his dignity. The proposal is violently shot down.
But this is the moment we, as the audience, have been waiting for. Keshav is brought into the room to be confronted by his father about this secret affair.
This is his grand opportunity.
This is his chance to stand up, look his conservative father in the eye, and be the modern, progressive rebel he claimed to be. Prema has already walked through the fire for him. What does Keshav do when the spotlight is on him?
We witness a complete and total psychological collapse.
His progressive facade shatters instantly.
It does. He doesn't offer a passionate defensive love. He doesn't debate the archaic nature of the caste system. He doesn't say a single word in his own defense or in defense of Prema. He capitulates entirely.
Why does he fold so quickly? He had so much ammunition, so much rhetoric ready when he was talking to Prema. Why does it just vanish?
Because the theoretical suddenly became material. In that split second, Keshav realizes that standing his ground means facing his father's genuine structural wrath.
If he claims Prema, he'll be disowned.
He'll lose his inheritance, his financial security, his comfortable home, and his elite status in society.
The progressive ideals he championed were a luxury, a fun intellectual exercise afforded to him by his comfortable position at the top of the hierarchy.
Exactly. When he is required to actually suffer to uphold those ideals, to make a tangible sacrifice, he is paralyzed by self-preservation.
It is the ultimate unmasking. His rebellion was entirely performative. It's a bitter pill to swallow. It was so easy for him to demand that Prema risk her family. But the second his own comfort was threatened, he chose his inheritance over the love of his life.
It highlights a very uncomfortable truth about human nature. We often mistake the ability to articulate a brave thought with the capacity to execute a brave action.
Keshav proved to be the titular coward.
And the true tragedy of this narrative is that, as Keshav is folding under pressure, Prema is sitting at home, completely unaware of his betrayal.
She thinks they're winning. She has fought this agonizing war at home, endured her mother's threats of disownment, and secured that tiny, reluctant window of possibility from her father.
So she takes the next step. She writes Keshav a letter.
And think about the sheer vulnerability required to send that letter.
She believes her partner has just fought the same grueling battle she did. She writes to him with pure, unfiltered hope.
She invites him to dinner at her house, explicitly stating that her parents are eager to meet him, which, given what we know about her parents, is a monumental victory.
She pours her absolute heart into this letter. She writes that she is ready to face any hardship, any poverty, any difficulty in life as long as she has his love.
She has crossed the Rubicon. She is all in.
She sets the stage for a celebration of their triumph. She prepares for this dinner. The imagery Premchand uses here is incredibly vivid and tense. The food is prepared, the family is gathered, and Prema waits.
The clock ticks. 9 o'clock passes. Then 10.
The family is waiting.
And no Keshav arrives. Not only has he failed to show up, but he doesn't even send a reply to her deeply vulnerable letter.
Yep.
There is just silence.
It is the suffocating silence of total abandonment. As the hours drag on, the agonizing realization washes over Prema.
The man who lectured her about bravery, who pushed her to tear her life apart for his ideals, has left her completely exposed.
So she realizes she's been abandoned. How does she handle that realization in front of her parents, who were already so hostile to this idea? Does she break down?
Does she confess that the Brahmin boy rejected her?
She doesn't. And her reaction is incredibly complex. To protect her own remaining pride, or perhaps to spare her family the ultimate humiliation of being stood up by someone they already considered an insulting match, she lies.
She tells her mother that Keshav couldn't come because he's unwell.
That is such a heavy burden to take on.
She's essentially absorbing the entire shockwave of his cowardice internally. She shields him, and she shields her family, letting the betrayal tear her apart from the inside out so no one else has to see it.
It's a profound act of endurance, but it is a fatal one. She realizes that the modern liberated world Keshav promised her was a complete mirage. He was never going to catch her.
But she has also already burned her bridges in the traditional world of her parents by fighting so hard for him.
She's suddenly trapped in an impossible, unlivable void between two worlds.
So after she lies to her mother, how does she get through the rest of that night? The way Premchand writes this sequence is haunting.
She goes through the motions of domestic life with terrifying precision. She serves dinner to her family as if nothing has changed.
She hides her total devastation behind a flawless mask of normalcy.
And then, late into the night, when the house is quiet, she sits down and begins to play the harmonium.
Playing music while her heart is completely shattered. What does that symbolize in this context?
The harmonium playing acts almost as a funeral dirge for her own hopes. It is the sound of a spirit that has accepted its end.
It's the ultimate facade of peace, masking an internal collapse.
She plays late into the night, pouring all her unspoken grief into the instrument because she has no one left to speak to.
Which leads us to the morning light and the tragic conclusion of our story. The next morning, the family wakes up to an unthinkable reality.
Mama is found dead in her room. She has taken her own life.
The story closes with a deeply poetic, chilling image. The morning sun's golden rays shining through the window, illuminating her pale, lifeless face.
It is a devastating finale. And as we step back to look at the bigger picture, we have to ask why this century-old text is still so vital for us to analyze today.
What is Premchand trying to tell you, the listener, right now?
It is a stark, timeless reminder about the nature of conviction.
It forces us to look in the mirror. It asks us what we do when the bill for our beliefs finally comes due.
Exactly. True courage is not found in having the right vocabulary. It's not found in progressive rhetoric or social media posturing or winning intellectual arguments in a coffee shop.
True courage is the willingness to sacrifice your own comfort, your own safety, and your own privilege when everything is actually on the line.
Keshav possessed the vocabulary of a brave man, but he had the soul of a coward. Prema, who lacked all the revolutionary vocabulary and appeared bound by fear, possessed the soul of an absolute warrior.
It is a phenomenal distinction, and one that resonates just as loudly today as it did in the 1930s.
It really does.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to gently remind you once more, if you found value in this analysis, if this story moved you or made you think differently, please subscribe to the Simplified Summary YouTube channel.
Hit that like button.
And most importantly, we want you to drop a comment below. What are your thoughts on Keshav's actions? Can you understand his paralyzing fear of losing his family and inheritance? Or is his betrayal of Prema completely unforgivable? Let us know in the comments.
And to leave you with a final, lingering thought to explore on your own, something that builds on the complexities we've discussed today. Consider this. Did Prema's deeply traditional upbringing, an upbringing that demanded intense duty, loyalty, and reverence, actually equip her with more strength of character to defy her parents than Keshav's supposed modernity gave him?
That completely flips the script. Are you suggesting her traditionalism is what made her a better rebel?
It's a possibility worth pondering. Perhaps true rebellion, the kind that can withstand massive societal pressure, requires a rock-solid foundation of deeply held personal values. Because Keshav's modern rebellion was entirely intellectual, it had no roots.
It was skin deep.
And without roots, he was doomed to blow over like a leaf the moment a real storm arrived. Prema's roots were incredibly deep, and when she chose to redirect that fierce, ingrained loyalty toward her love for Keshav, she became unshakable. Think about where your own roots lie and what kind of courage they might afford you when you need it most.
A brilliant and challenging question to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Until
Next time.